busy sidewalks, dressed in holiday style. In the air, there's a feeling of Christmas. Children laughing, people passing, meeting smile after smile. And on every street corner you can hear silver bells, silver bells, silver bells, silver bells. It's Christmas time in the city. Ring-a-ling, ring-a-ling, hear them sing, hear them sing. Soon it will be Christmas Day. Strings of street lights, even stoplights, blink a bright red and green as the shoppers rush home with their treasures. Hear the snow crunch, see the kids bunch. This is Santa's big scene. And above all the bustle you can hear silver bells. The corner Santa Claus, silver bells, is busy now because it's Christmas time in the city. Ring-a-ling, you'll hear it in the air. Hear them ring, you'll hear it everywhere. Soon it will be Christmas Day. Very soon it will be Christmas Day.
Hey, you two, how's it going?
Okay, let's see. Give me 1 minute, y'all. I know we've got a few people on. Just trying to get some things going.
Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of ages. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Everywhere you go, take a look at the 5 and 10. It's glistening once again. Candy canes and silver lanes that glow. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Toys in every store. But the prettiest sight to see is the holly that will be on your own front door. Pair of hop-along boots and a kiss of the truth is the wish of Barney and Ben. Stars that'll talk and we'll go for a walk as the hope of Janice and Jen. Mom and Dad can hardly wait for school to start again. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Okay.
Everywhere you go, there's a tree in the Grand Hotel, one in the park as well. It's the sturdy kind that doesn't mind the snow. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Soon the bells will start, and the thing that'll make them ring is the carol that you sing right within your heart. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Toys in every store, but the prettiest sight to see is the holly that will be on your own front door. Sure, it's Christmas once more.
Okay. Can everyone hear me all right? About to get started soon. I've got my favorite, well, one of my favorite beverages is a cinnamon hot tea. Cinnamon tea is so good. So that's what I'm drinking. I am drinking it with a straw because of my lipstick. Okay. Hi, Nisi. Anaya. Oh, 13. That's a good age to do cookie decorating. Hi, Deneen. Okay, we got a few people on. Can you believe Christmas is this week? I almost can't believe it. That's insane. But I work a lot, like all the way up until, you know, the weekend before Christmas. So sometimes it just feels like it came super, super quick because of all of the work that I'm doing. And then I get like a couple of days off before Christmas where I usually sleep like the whole time. I slept 14 hours last night and then 12 hours yesterday. So yeah, when you work 100 hours a week for a month, I guess that's what happens when you take a break. So. All right, so you can obviously see and hear me. Hopefully sounds good. I can't see or hear you. So something a little bit different about YouTube, you know, other than Zoom. So feel free to comment. You do have to have it not in full screen mode, but if you exit out of full screen, you should see a comment box on the right of the video. If I'm seeing that correctly, yes. And then you can comment. And I don't know about y'all, but I've got my little Santa get up here. I got this vest one time at a garage sale, like, I don't know, 10 years ago. And it's perfect for Florida because it does not feel like Christmas. It was 72 today, I think. So it's not very cold. I'm actually like burning up right now in the Santa hat, so I'll probably take it off when we start. But it's not really cold, but I think that Christmas Day is supposed to be like 35 degrees if I saw correctly, which would be kind of nice because, you know, hot is not really very fun on Christmas Day. So, hey Aunt Kim, how are y'all? Okay, so I think it's about that time. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and start recording here. 8. Okay. So hello, I'm Jackie, if you have never seen me before. My company, I actually have 2 companies. One is the Jackie Sweet Shapes, which is the cookies and icings and the kit. And then the other is Jackie Sweet Schoolhouse, which is where I do my cookie decorating classes. But I own both. I run both by myself. So yeah, this is gonna be fun. We're decorating Christmas cookies. So some of y'all have a black Santa, some have a white Santa. I was really happy to offer that option this year. And our cookies, these are actually from like a month ago. So the colors are kind of bleeding and everything, but this is what we're gonna be doing. And yeah, 5 of our cookies here. Well, it shows 6, but you only have 1 Santa. So the first 10 to 15 minutes, I'm just going to set y'all up for success with the class. If you have taken a class with me before, this is nothing new, but it's really good for you who are beginners, and it's just gonna be a lot of information that I'm gonna just kind of throw at you, but trust me, it will be very helpful for the rest of the class. And if you are not a beginner, it's still helpful to go over some of these skills, especially just practicing the outlining and the piping that we're going to do on the worksheet. So first and foremost, thank you so much for joining me. It's going to be a lot of fun, hopefully. I always have fun. Hopefully you guys have fun too. It will actually take 2 hours to decorate all of the cookies, but we will get a break in the middle, and we usually play some kind of game. I do a couple of door prizes, but it does take about 15 minutes of an intro, then about an hour to outline and flood, which I'll explain all that too. We'll take a break, and then another 30 to 45 minutes to do the detailing. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna move these over. You also have a picture, that's something new that I included for y'all, so you can always glance at that picture if you need to see what the finished product looks like. But what you're gonna do is pull everything out of your box. And you're going to take your little parchment paper and, spread it out like I have here. All right, let's get our cookies. We will be using everything that's in our box. Oh, I did want to say as well that many of you are watching this live, but we do have a few people, usually it's about 70% who choose to do the recording only. So if you're on YouTube watching the recording, great, you can pause and go at your own pace. You can fast forward. If you're taking the live and you feel like I'm going too fast and you can't keep up, there's also the option to watch it pre-recorded, which will literally be right after the class is finished. You can go back and go at your own pace. Okay. Hey, Donna. All right, so let's take all of our cookies out of the bag. Make sure you have a pair of scissors if you have not grabbed that yet. Make sure you got a pair of scissors. I'm gonna open my bag of cookies. If you have not done that yet, you'll wanna go ahead and do that. I like to stack them up sort of on the side here. All right. So just kind of stack them here somewhere. You can see that. And then we've got, our icings. Okay, most important thing about your icings, if you did not read on the paper, you will want to take each one and just kind of massage it with your fingers, run your fingers through it. I saw somebody in a class a couple weeks ago was going like this, which was kind of cool. And I guess it works. So whatever you need to do, just make sure that you incorporate those colors and the icing really, really well, because I did make them, I guess a week ago or less. So you just want to make sure that it's all incorporated, because it does tend to separate. And especially the ones that do not have a line on them, you'll really want to take about 30 seconds to just incorporate all that icing. So you can work on doing that. It might take a little bit of time, but we're just going to incorporate all of that icing, because if not, it looks kind of like blotchy and runny when we go to add the icing in. So we just want to make sure we really do this real good. with both of them. And while you're doing that, I'm going to give you a few more comments. So something I've been realizing about these edible markers that you have in your kit, I've been getting a lot of comments that they don't work, but I'm trying to figure out why that is. And so this is a little bit of a disclaimer. The edible marker is not necessary. Like if you are a beginner and you really don't feel confident, you can use the marker to trace your lines, and then that way when you go to put the icing on, it does make it a little bit easier. But I want to show you a cookie from last week. So I don't know if you can see this. Let me see. But if you see like right here, you can kind of see that black line. And you can see it sort of like under the white. I know you can't really see it on the camera here, but what I was finding was that it was kind of seeping through the icing a little bit. You may kind of see a little color discoloration right here. I don't know if y'all can see that, but I'm just saying that to say, if you feel confident and you don't want to use the marker, you don't have to. I'm going to teach it with the marker, but sometimes it is a little hard to use when the grease gets on the tip. Sometimes it just kind of gets like, I don't know, it gets greasy and then it's not able to use it as much. But as another thing too, if you're writing completely upright, it's not going to really work as well. So if you're using the marker, you want to make sure it's on its side when you go to draw those lines. So that's a little disclaimer. Again, if you feel confident, you don't have to use this. I am going to teach it with this. So just something to note, if you're giving them as a gift, you might not want to use the marker because it does kind of show through the whites. Okay, so hopefully y'all are still doing your little massaging here. All right, we have our toothpicks for spreading the icing. And then the last thing I want to tell you about are these two bags. So these two bags, these are in case you mess up cutting your hole and you cut like a really big hole, you can transfer them to this. I'm going to show you how to do that near the beginning. But if you mess up, you've got two extras. But the goal is to try to cut a smaller hole than you think that you need to. And then that way you don't have to use the extra bags, but they're there for you just in case you need them. Okay, so hopefully all my talking gave you time to do your little icings. All right, so most important thing here, your red, green, and white all have these little lines on them. Now, what that means is these are the thicker ones, but this is another disclaimer. I actually make them thinner for you. So this is not actually like up to professional consistency. Like I would probably have them 3 times as thick, but for beginners, you can't. I did thin them out so that you're not getting a hand cramp, because if you're not used to holding and squeezing out of the bag, you can find that it's pretty difficult if it's really thick. So I have thinned them out. The good thing about this is if you end up, hopefully not, if you end up running out of the thin icing, you can also use this one that has a line on it to outline and flood. It can work as both an outline and a flood because it is a little bit thinner, but it isn't as thin as this one. Okay, so what you're gonna do is take all of the ones that have a line and you're gonna just put those to the left or the right, and then take all of the other ones and put them over on the opposite side. That'll just keep us from kind of like messing up and grabbing the thin one when we're supposed to grab the thick one, but I'll make sure to explain as we go as well. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is learn how to cut the bag, and I'm also going to do the worksheet with y'all. Okay, so what we want to do is grab our worksheet, and we're going to grab the white that has the line on it. Okay, first things first, I know it kind of seems silly to explain this, but I do want to show you how I hold the icing bag. So I'm going to put it into my palm, and this knot right here, push all of that icing kind of away from the knot just to make sure it's all brought down. And then you're going to have your thumb folded right under the knot here. I like to tuck my thumb in, and what I'm doing is I'm actually getting a really good squeeze, hopefully from my thumb into my palm. So this is where your squeeze is predominantly coming from, is from your thumb into your palm. Now you're just gonna fold your fingers over like that. Okay, so you're all the way under, you're above all of the icing is below your thumb. All right, and then what we do is we actually keep our elbow on the table, but you're gonna keep your wrist up from the table, and that's gonna allow you to just kind of let that icing drag onto the paper, which I'm about to show you. But if you keep your wrists up, it's gonna be really helpful so that you're not touching the paper with the icing tip. One of the hardest things is letting that icing just kind of drag so you get a nice thick barrier, and that's what we're gonna practice in a little bit. I take my pointer finger on my other hand, and I either put it here at like the base of where the tip is, or I put it on my wrist. And what that does is it's gonna steady you a little bit, 'cause sometimes when you get a little shaky, totally normal. I usually in class hold my wrist just because I'm not trying to be in your way of seeing what I'm doing, but either way works. Okay, now, when we go to cut this icing bag, this is always a hard thing for people, so I explain it two ways. You can think of a number 2 pencil. See where this lead meets the wood? That little piece that we cut off is going to be about that amount. So if you happen to have a number 2 pencil, like who uses those anymore, but if you happen to have one, you can think of that, or you can just kind of look at mine for scale and kind of see that's the amount that we're cutting off. Second thing is you can line it up on your worksheet. You just want to make sure that your tip is right at the second line, and then what you do is you cut halfway between the second and first line. So think teeny tiny hole, because you can always cut off more, but if you cut off too much, you'll have to use one of your bags, which is okay. You just only have 2 redos. So let's cut a little bit off. Remember, can always cut off more, so not too much off. And then what I like to do is I like to run my fingers down the side, so like of the seam, just so that when I look at it, it's a hole and not a flat line. Okay. And then hold it like I taught you, or hold it any way that you find is best for you. You don't have to follow my direction, but we are going to start practicing here. So let's do the align. And so I'm going to give you tips kind of as we go. But you start and you stop a line by dipping down, letting that icing catch the paper, and then that's when you pull your wrist up a little bit, let it drag, and then dip down to stop. You will be about 1 centimeter to 1 inch up off of that paper, and the only time that you touch is when you start and you stop the line. Does that make sense? So it's a little tricky, but you're definitely just letting it drag onto the paper and only moving as fast as that flow of icing is coming out. If you go too fast, your line might break. So just let it drag on, kind of take your time. And this is the key. If your white line covers that black ink perfectly, kind of like mine is, then you cut the right amount. If you can see that black line underneath and you can barely see your white line, you're going to want to snip off a little bit more. If you've got like a giant line of white, that's going to be problematic because you might run out of white, but it's just going to be way too big, and that's when I'm going to teach you right now how you can transfer to another bag, and this will apply to any of the icing bags that you cut too big. This is how we're going to transfer. So if that applies to you, you can watch me and follow along. If it does not apply to you, you can just continue on with your worksheet, or just listen because you might do it in the next one, so we want to know how to do it for next time. All right, we're going to cut a little bit of a bigger hole in this bag. We're going to take our empty bag, and we're going to stick the old one inside of the new bag. I'm holding the tail with my right hand. It's inside the bag, and I'm going to squeeze it out with my left hand. outside of the bag, so I'm getting all of that icing out. And then I've got my old one, all the icing is gone. New one has all that icing, and then you just tie a knot. And there you have a fresh new bag to cut, but when you cut it the second time, just make sure it's smaller than the one you just did. All right, so that's how you get a little redo. You have 2 redos. And I'm gonna write on a marker that this is a thick one since I just transferred it to the new bag. And there we have it. All right, so let's continue on with the worksheet. We are using the thick one that has a line on it. All of your outlining and your detailing will always be with the bag that has the line on it, because the other one is super runny and it won't keep its shape like this one is doing. So this one is like your barrier icing, and then your thin one goes inside. If you're doing your, what they call flooding, I don't really know why they call it that, but I guess because you're flooding that area inside of your outline. But yeah, just take your time. Let me know if you have any questions. This is probably the only time that I'm really going to be throwing a whole bunch of information at you, like all at once. And if you've taken a class with me before, which actually there are quite a few of you who have taken classes with me before, then you already know the drill. You know what we're doing. The hearts and the circles are a little bit trickier. I'm only going to do one of the outside circles. I'm only going to do one of each actually. So I'm just going to do 1 circle and 1 heart for now. But doesn't have to be perfect. We're just getting used to doing this part, which is the hardest part here. And the outline icing dries, it starts to dry within about a minute, I would say. So like right now, the top lines are drying. Your flood icing, the thin one, dries within about 2 minutes. So the thinner the icing, the longer it takes to dry. But again, that's not really a whole lot of time. You'll notice that when we do our first cookie flooding, by the end, it's going to be, the top layer is going to be dry. However, they still take 8 hours to 24 hours to completely dry. So the top layer is going to dry enough for us to add the details, but the whole layer of icing won't dry until at least tomorrow morning. I actually think that the cookie tastes better when it's completely dry. So if you eat it right after class, it's going to be a little different because it's just a texture thing. It tastes the same, but mentally the texture to me makes it taste better when it's dry. Okay, so hopefully we have this, and hopefully you've got at least 1 circle and 1 heart. That's all we need. We're going to practice our flooding, but we're only going to do it with 1 of the circles just to kind of save our icing, just in case we need it for everything else. I try to do, you know, the right amount, but of course I'm human, I make mistakes, so we just want to conserve our thin icing. All right, so for the thin icing, when you cut the hole, you actually cut, if we're using the worksheet as a scale, if you do that same thing where you line it up on the second line, you're gonna cut, instead of how the outline was halfway between the second and first line, now we're gonna cut right to that first line. So it's about double the size of a hole as the thick one, about double, but it's not that much, right? It's still teeny tiny. Usually most people cut off more than they think that they should. So you can use your little worksheet to draw that, to kind of like get that scale right, or just think about double. Now we definitely need our toothpick for this. When you're not using the white or whatever thin icing, I like to keep it upside down because it will leak out. So if you're not using it, kind of keep it upside down. And if you've never done this before, you'll just want to watch me here. So I squeeze it out, I get it close to the outline, and then I spiral in. And I don't want any gaps or holes in the inside because I only want to swirl that toothpick and push it towards the outline. I don't want to be sitting here for very long with the toothpick. I just want to make sure I've got enough on there that it looks like a fluffy pillow on top of the worksheet. But not too much that it overfloods, not too little that, again, you're sitting there forever trying to spread. You can always add in more, you know, as you're doing the toothpick. Just know it's about 2 minutes, and then the top layer starts to kind of crust over. All right? But this is also for popping in air bubbles if you happen to see any. It's not always the case, but sometimes you get some air bubbles and you just pop them with the little skewer. If you happen to put in too much, this flat piece of your skewer is pretty good for scooping it out. That's not always the case unless you have a very, very large surface area. So with the circle, you're probably just fine. If you happen to put too much into one of the cookies, you can take that flat piece and kind of scoop it out and put it on your napkin. Napkins are a necessity because it is very, very messy. All right, another little tip I give you, after you're done using the thin, I make sure to fold the tip in. So fold the tip in and then roll it up. And that's just gonna kind of close it off so that it doesn't get all over the place, kind of closes it up. And then it'll kind of just stay like that, which is kind of neat. And it won't run all over the place. I know it's messy, we're trying to be as little messy as possible. All right. So if you have any questions, you can comment in the live chat box. But for now, we're done with the worksheet, and I'm just gonna place it off to the side. So hopefully you feel confident, maybe not confident, but a little bit more confident if you are a beginner doing the worksheet, because now we're gonna do the same thing on the cookies. And the first one we're gonna do, since we're already working with the white, is going to be the mug. All right, and now this is where you can choose to use the marker or not, but this is kind of how our final product will look. You can either do the Joy or the Mary. I did Joy in the last class because they were a little bit nervous about the, you know, the Mary, which had more letters on it, but it's up to you what you want to do when we get to that point. Okay, so if you're choosing to use the marker, you can go ahead and use it with me. All right, the first line I'm going to make, I'm going to cut off the handle. And again, if you're upright, it's not going to write as well. So just kind of make sure it's a little bit on its side here. So I'm going to just kind of create this line. And again, this is not necessary. This is for you to make it a little bit easier if you're not feeling super confident about doing those lines with the icing bag, but you can also just go ahead and do it with the icing bag as well. The next one is just going to be straight across here, the lip of the mug. So you see where this part here kind of bumps out, that's the whipped cream. So right under it is where you're going to start that line. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to cover it up with the icing anyway. And then the final line is going to be a little semicircle right here. And it's pretty tiny, but that's going to be our handle will be here. So that little opening is just where your fingers would go, right, for a mug, like I have. So the handle's going to be white, the mug is going to be white, the whipped cream is going to be white. Oh, I forgot we can do the line for the candy cane now too. So if you're using a marker, we're gonna just draw 2 lines. You see where it kind of indents here? It shows you this is kind of like the back of one candy cane here on the right. And then we're gonna draw a diagonal line again. And that's the candy cane that's like in the front, kind of. Okay, so those lines, if you chose to do it, that's what we want it to look like. And then we have our thick white. So thick white, remember, has the line on it. We've already cut it, so we're good to go. And you can start wherever you want, but we are going to do the mug and the handle. So if you did the line, you're gonna just want to pretty much trace over the line where you did the lip for the mug. And I know for beginners, sometimes it's really hard to get that even line. So if there are breaks and holes in your barrier, you can just go back over it again until you have a nice barrier with no holes in that line. All right, next we're gonna come down here, following that line. So the right side of the mug. And then we're gonna follow the edge of the cookie here on the bottom and the left. I always like to say you wanna get pretty close to the edge, but you don't want it to like fall off of the cookie. So it's really a matter of preference. Some people, they like to come a little bit more in and then you see more of the cookie. That's totally fine if that's what you want. I like to go a little bit more towards the edge, just as long as I don't fall off that cookie. And then we're also gonna do the handle. And then I'll pause just in case anybody needs to catch up. The handle is gonna be following the edge of that cookie, and then you're gonna trace the little semicircle if you did, you know, that marker, or you're just gonna be drawing it, envisioning those lines in your head and trying to trace it like that. So barrier is there. Take a look at it, make sure there's no holes or gaps. Make sure all the little lines are connecting. And if you kind of did it in, you know, lines, line, line, just make sure they're all connected. The handle is connected to the mug. And we want to let it dry for about a minute. But while this is drying, we're also going to do the whipped cream part. So I'm going to do just the outer part that I see here, just following the edge of the cookie. And then I'll trace that black line that I made. But we're gonna leave the candy canes as is for now. The candy canes are a little difficult, so I'm actually saving that for later. And again, if you ever need to like re-outline, you can go back over it if you do need to make it thicker or need to make it a little bit more perfect. Sometimes if like a cookie dips down at a certain point, which just happens when baking, sometimes the air kind of, I don't know. I don't exactly know the science behind it, but I would say, I think, the air kind of like goes out of it a little bit, and so sometimes it dips down. If that's the case, then I just put a little bit more icing on top of it. All right, once you have this, we're only going to flood the big middle part here. We're going to leave the handle and the whipped cream as is, because if we let the middle part dry a little bit before we add these two white, it's going to give us a little bit of separation between those segments. And so as you can see, like in this cookie, I didn't have to re-outline here because it sort of kept its separation, which is really nice, and it makes it so that we don't have to re-outline it. Okay, so just like you did on the circle, but obviously it's a little bit of a bigger surface area here. Just kind of go close to the outline. I usually say for beginners, close to it, not touching it, just to avoid that over flooding. But then as you come inside, no gaps at all, and make sure you've got enough icing that it looks like a fluffy pillow on top. Okay, and then use that toothpick to push it towards the outline. And it should only take you about 30 seconds to a minute to use your toothpick. Any longer than that, you're going to notice it's going to start already drying on you. And some people, they like to do the shake and tap method. It's not necessarily, only because we have very thin icing. So like I said, I also thin this one down a little bit more. So that's only really necessary when we have like a thicker icing and we need to help it spread a little bit faster. But for mine that I use in class, we don't really need to do that. It just will settle on its own very quickly. Okay, we're gonna leave those bare. I'm going to fold the tip in and roll it up. Okay. So your first cookie has been outlined and flooded, not completely, but that's our first one. And we're going, since we're doing the white, we're gonna go ahead and do the Santa. He's going to get his beard. Let's see. And the white parts of his hat, kind of like my hat. Okay, so very, very carefully move the mug over somewhere where it can kind of dry, but it's already going to start drying on you, so just be very careful. I like to kind of hold it on the bottom sort of and just kind of very carefully move it over. So both Santas are the same, whether you got the black Santa or the white Santa. So they're the same, just the color is different. But this one's a little tricky. I would recommend doing the marker unless you're feeling super confident or you're more advanced. But I would do the marker just because there's a lot of lines, and so we're gonna have to draw out his face, his little pom thing here, his little fluffy part, and I guess that's it. But the fluffy part, that, and then his face. And the outside of the cookie does show you, you know, where to draw those lines, which is nice. So let's start with the easiest one, which is going to be his little pom-pom. So here, you know, you already see that little circle, so you can just finish that circle with the marker. And it shows you where it starts the fluffy part, but obviously we have to make those our own lines there. I have great faith in you. So for this, the top one, I just kind of completed just a tiny bit here. And then I'm going to give this a little curved line about the same. So if you can see that, it's just a little tiny amount. The two other curved lines are a little bit bigger, so we've got two more. And there's a little bit of space here because that's where his red hat's gonna be. So just try to, try your best, make it kind of fluffy. We're gonna do 1 and then 2. The bottom will kind of be symmetrical a little bit. So again, 1 and 2, and we're not going to fully close that in just yet. So this is going to get kind of it's not going to be a circle here. It's going to not necessarily be a straight line, but it'll be a curved line sort of the opposite way. And that's kind of where his little hat's going to be. And you can keep it like that, or if you want, you can draw the line all the way down to his little pom-pom. So we've got that. We're starting to see it come together. His face is just gonna be kind of like a rectangle. So I usually go about 1 centimeter in. So kind of like where this first little fluffy part comes up, I'm gonna do a line down. And then I'm gonna go across. And then I'm gonna go up. And you can redo it if you need to. I know in this last class I did with my friends, I actually decided to make it a little bit bigger, so I drew another line and I just gave him a little bit of a bigger face. But the only thing that really needs to fit on his face are the eyes, so we don't need like a whole lot of space. His nose will kind of be covering a little bit, but mostly it's just going to be his eyes right there. So we don't need like a super big face. My mom said that she didn't really like this version of Santa because she said that he was too skinny. But it works well as a set. Like I try to tell her, I know, but it's a set, so they're all the same height, which I thought was cool. But yeah, Santa should be a little fatter, right? All right, so once you have that, we're gonna take our thick white. Okay, so make sure you grab the one that has a line on it. All right, the first thing we're going to do is create the circle, his little pom-pom, and then cover the line that you made right there. Okay, and then we're gonna trace the little fluffy part here. So yeah, the marker helps so that you don't have to eyeball this. You know, it's more like tracing, which is a lot easier. If you do actually want to get into cookie decorating more and you still want to use the lines, what I use is I actually use a yellow edible marker. And the lady I buy these from, she doesn't have the mini ones in yellow, but the yellow, it doesn't stand out as much as the black, so it doesn't show through when you do the icing. So if that's just something if you want to get into it. And I do actually sell the yellow ones on my website. Okay, the next thing we're going to do after you do the fluffy part is we're going to trace or make that line just following his little beard here. And just take your time, make sure you're looking at how you're holding the bag, make sure you're getting that good squeeze from your thumb into your palm here. And again, keeping the elbow on the table, but your wrist is gonna be up a little bit to allow that icing to drag onto the cookie. And we've got a little bit more to do with the thick white here. I'm just trying not to go too fast. I try to go at kind of like an intermediate pace. So sometimes y'all might be a little ahead or you might be a little behind. So I try to do my best to not go too fast. Okay, next we're going to trace the little kind of rectangle segment that we made for his face. Okay, and then the last thing is closing off his hat here on the right side of where his beard starts. So just close off that. So we've got our white will be flooding the beard. And then we're actually, just like the mug, we're only going to do the beard. Let that dry. And then we'll do the hat. And while the beard and the hat part are like the red part, we'll do the red part next. While those are drying, then we'll wait to do the pom-pom and the fluffy part. But when they dry, we'll come back and do that. And then later we'll add his little face. So lots of steps to this particular cookie. But we're gonna switch gears here to a different color. Just like I said, we're gonna do the hat. So grab your red that has the line on it. So thick red, and remember you're gonna cut that teeny tiny hole. If you were a little bit late to the game, you can use your worksheet if you missed me talk about this, and you're gonna snip off. If you use your worksheet, you're gonna snip off, line it up on the second line, and snip off halfway between the first and second line. Very, very tiny amount. You can always cut off more if you need to here. And just make sure that that little triangle piece doesn't fly into your cookie. I don't even want to know how many of those I sweep up every day in my cookie room. All those little triangles. Sometimes before I use the outline, I actually just test it on the napkin just to make sure it's coming out. Sometimes at the bottom will have a lot of water, so you can kind of just make sure it's flowing out nice and good, and then make sure you run your fingers across to get it to be a circle. And then what we're gonna do here is just the top part of his hat with the thick red. And make sure it's connecting from his fluffy part all the way to the little pom-pom. No holes in between there. We're getting the hardest cookies out of the way if you have not noticed. So if you're a beginner and you're feeling like, this is pretty challenging, the good news is these are the two hardest ones. And then I transition into the easier ones. So you should be feeling pretty good about yourself right now. We're tackling the hardest ones. Okay, we're gonna flood the beard, but not the pom-pom or the fluffy parts. So just the beard. Take that the thin white that does not have the line on it. And getting into these tighter, smaller spaces here, we're definitely gonna need that toothpick to sort of push into the smaller places here. But the bigger part of his beard, Just make sure you've got it completely iced in the middle so that you're only using that toothpick to swirl into the outline and then getting into those tighter spaces like at the top. And again, if you end up putting in too much and it starts to kind of spill out over, which I think mine might, you can take your fat side of the skewer and just kind of pick some out and put it on its napkin. But yep, that's the beard. And then you'll roll up the white if you like taking my advice so that it doesn't spill out everywhere. All right, and then we're gonna do the red for his hat. Flooding, okay. And remember, you're gonna grab the thin one. It has not been cut yet. Make sure that it is all massaged together. It's all incorporated, all of that icing, so it won't be blotchy or runny when we use it. But you're gonna cut that a little bit bigger of a hole. So remember, it's still small, but it's about double what you cut off for the outline. Again, not a whole lot. Let that little triangle fall on the floor. It's gonna get swept up later anyway. I'm just messing with y'all. I think it's funny. Sometimes I get the little triangle piece that falls into the cookie. I gotta scoop it out before I do the icing. So we're gonna flood this, and now you can touch the white, or you can use your toothpick, get close to it, and then use your toothpick to help spread it into that those little areas where the white is. Another tip, do make sure to wipe the tip in between colors. So I had a little white on there, so I just wiped it off. So then that way when I do this, I'm not going to get the white into it. So always try to wipe the tip of your skewer in between colors. If you do happen to get white in there, you can always just kind of scoop it out though. Okay, we're gonna let him dry. Decorating cookies like this, it's a lot about working in steps, you know, so you're doing different segments, you're letting them dry, you're adding the details later. It's a lot of steps, and if you always wondered why cookies like this were so expensive, you take a class and you realize, oh, that is why. It takes a lot of time to detail them, and that's not even considering the baking and the packaging that goes into it. But for sure, it gives you a new sort of appreciation for these types of cookies, and that's cool. That's one good thing, I guess, for me. But I am by no means the best. I follow a lot of people on Instagram who are absolutely amazing, and I look at a cookie and I go, I wonder how long that took them. Okay. So let's move him over towards the mug so he can keep drying here. How we feeling? Y'all having fun? Everybody kind of went quiet on the chat. I assume you're concentrating, taking your time here. All right. How about we do an easier one? Actually, it's pretty easy. It's definitely a beginner cookie. we are going to do, since we've got the red, we might as well just go ahead and do Santa's bag. Pretty easy. Let's see if I got my example one. All it's gonna get is the red outline and then the red flooding for now. The little string and the heart gonna be later, but for now, pretty easy. You're just gonna outline in red, so make sure you grab the one that has the line on it. You're gonna just do the entire cookie, and it doesn't matter where you start. All right. And we're just trying to go pretty close to the edge, but we don't want it to fall off. Just looking for a good barrier for all of that thin icing. And let it dry for about 30 seconds to a minute. Lots of squiggly lines over here, but having a blast. Yes, for beginners, very, very normal to have squiggly, you know, jagged, kind of rugged lines. Very, very normal. That is the part that I think, in my opinion, requires the most practice, is just the outlining and the detailing to get those really smooth, perfect lines. And even I mess up too, and I've been doing it for about 7 years. It was a hobby first, and then about 4 years ago, it became a business. And then it wasn't until 2 years ago that I went into it full time. So again, I'm doing this full time and I'm still messing up. So it's definitely hard, and just to get those smooth lines. Yes. All right. We're gonna flood it. Nothing too special here, just same thing that we've been doing. Again, for beginners, kind of going close to the outline, but then getting a lot of icing inside, so no gaps or holes. And that way, the only thing that we're having to swirl with our toothpick is just to the outline. I'm excited to be able to do Christmas cookies because I had about 5 corporate classes, and you know, of course not everybody celebrates Christmas, so we like winter themed ones, and I was like, oh, I'm so glad I'm doing my own class, because it would have been so sad if I didn't get to teach a Christmas class. But the winter ones, that was really fun. All of the corporations, it's lots of fun. Now we are done with the red for right now. I mean, not done, but I did roll it up, so keep it closed there. And this guy is going to be chilling somewhere, wherever you have space. Let it dry, because we're actually not going to return to this one till like an hour from now. I don't know, we may finish early, so maybe 45 minutes from now, we'll see. But how about after that, let's actually bring back over our mug and our Santa. because these ones are going to have details on them, so I do want to get that icing in sooner than later. And they have dried enough. I wouldn't go touching it like I just did, but I'm just doing it just to make sure it is dry enough that we can add, and it'll keep that separation. And what we're doing is we're going to do the thin white. We're going to flood the whipped cream and the handle, the little pom-pom, and the fluffy part. And that'll be it for the, and then again, these are going to dry, and then we'll add the details in about 45 minutes. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and add the white. Make sure it's the one that does not have the line on it. It's going to be easier to flood it. This teeny tiny handle right here. Sometimes I use the tip of my icing bag to kind of act like a toothpick, and I sort of like push it to the outline when it's this tiny of a space. And I don't often use my toothpick on a really tiny spot like that. Same thing with the little pom-pom. Sometimes I just kind of use the tip to act like the little toothpick and spread it out into the outline. But for the whipped cream, I'll use my toothpick. Whoops. Okay, these ones are our difficult ones. These ones are our advanced cookies. Yes, yes. Anytime you add writing, automatically makes the cookie advanced. That's my opinion. It doesn't say that anywhere in like a rule book, but in my opinion, when you add the writing, ooh, that makes it an advanced cookie, because writing is probably one of the most difficult things that you can do on a cookie. Okay, almost done with this. I just realized that the Santa will actually have one more step before he's able to dry a little longer, but we still have to wait for this white to dry before we add his face. So the mug for sure can go over by our Santa bag. It's going to continue to dry. Santa, he's he's in the waiting room. we're still working on him. Okay, so he's in the waiting room. He's gonna get a little bit after we do the next cookie. He'll get the face. Okay. Let's do the tree next. It's one of my favorites. The camera kind of makes the glitter look all strange, but it doesn't actually look like that glittery. Anyway, so we've got our tree. So you see the white lines? That's kind of like the garland or the lights or whatever you want to imagine that is. That's going to be with the thick white. So what we're going to do is we're going to outline with the thick green. We have not cut this one yet. We're gonna then flood it when it dries a little bit with the thin green. And then while it's wet, what I did was I did some little diagonal kind of curved lines. You can omit that if you don't want that, but yeah, it looks pretty cool. And then while it's wet, then you're gonna add your sprinkles. And I didn't advertise it, but I did include a little heart. A star, not a heart, a star. Because you can't have a Christmas tree without a star on the top. So while it's wet, that's when you're gonna put your sprinkles sort of just throughout it, and then add that little star on top. And then guess what? After that, this cookie will be completely done. So it's the only one that you'll be able to start and finish without pausing to let it dry. It's the only one that will be completely done after you add the ornaments, which is kind of cool. Disclaimer about the ornaments. They are edible, they're sprinkles. However, they're kind of like jawbreakers, so don't like just bite into one. Like, you kind of have to suck on them. So if you do give this one as a gift, I kind of am telling people, I know it's probably not necessary, but I don't want to be held liable for somebody breaking a tooth. So I just tell them that this is like a jawbreaker. So take them off, or yeah. But they're fun. They are edible, I promise. All right. I used to draw breakers all the time. Cut that little hole on your green. Remember, if you cut too much off, you do still have your 2 redo bags. Run your finger down the seam. I know I keep saying this. I am going to put a little bit on my napkin just to test out. I want to kind of get some of that watery part out of it. But it's flowing pretty good. And we're just going to do the outline of the tree here. And it doesn't matter where you start. And you can take breaks in between. You know, you can kind of do a line and then stop. Do another line. And just let it dry for about a minute. So I probably went faster than you. That's okay, just let it dry. I'm gonna wait a little bit. While I'm letting it dry, I might get my little sprinkles out so that they're ready. Sometimes people put them in like a little bowl. Whoop. And I definitely won't be using all of these. Currently, my ornaments on my tree, they're a lot of them. There's a lot. So this is kind of a funny story. As we're decorating our cookie tree, we bought a real tree. It's always a tradition that we buy a real tree. And even though my parents and my husband's parents always say it's, you know, waste of money, whatever, I personally, it's one of my favorite things is to get a real tree. So we started it when we got married, which was only 3.5 years ago. So this would be, yeah, the 3rd or 4th Christmas or whatever. So we always go out and get a tree. We got a real one. It was Black Friday, so the day after Thanksgiving. We just moved in September, so I thought that I knew where my ornaments were, but I couldn't find them anywhere. So our tree it had no ornaments on it for about 3 weeks. And then it wasn't until last night that I went over to my parents' house and we helped them decorate their tree. My mom, she gave me a big bin. She said, here, you know, we have plenty of ornaments. Like, take what you want. And I was so excited because we got to finally put ornaments on the tree last night. And it was cool because a lot of them were my childhood ones. And so I got to put up ones that were sentimental. And I still have no idea where our box of ornaments is. Somewhere in our storage unit, who knows. But our tree no longer looks naked. It's got all the ornaments after 3 weeks on it. But I didn't care. I was like, oh, whatever, I'll get to it. But my husband, he was feeling pretty sad. He was like, the tree looks so sad right now. Hey, as long as we get them on before Christmas Eve, I'm like, yeah, you haven't done anything wrong, right? You still get them on before Christmas Eve. Okay, we're gonna cut the bigger hole in the thin green. Now remember, everything is gonna happen while this is wet. So you don't have to act in a rush because we still have a couple minutes before it dries. But while it's wet, we're gonna add the garland. I'll show you how to do that. And then we'll also add the star and the ornaments. So. And I don't think I massaged this one enough because it's kind of like looking kind of blotchy. But we'll just cover it up with some ornaments. Okay, so I'm not like rushing too much. I just know I got to get those ornaments on before it dries completely. And then your thick, remember it's going to be the thick white, so not the thin one. And you can just do like I did little curved diagonal lines from one side to the other. And this is called the wet on wet technique. So the wet on wet just means you're putting wet icing into the wet icing. And it's going, when it dries, it just kind of meshes together. It looks really, really cool. It's not two-dimensional. Like if you were to let it dry and then add it, it would look kind of two-dimensional. But this is really cool. It just kind of like sinks into it. And then of course, we're gonna trim our tree with our ornaments. Our jawbreakers. And I am kind of trying to sort of like switch up the colors and make it look aesthetically nice, but again, my tree does not look very aesthetically perfect, so it's all good. But yes, this is the only one that'll be completely finished now. And so you've got 1 done, 4 to go. All right. And we've got a couple more to do before we take our little break, where we do our door prizes. As always, I always do a door prize. But yay, this one is finished. Hopefully you feel great about this one. It is more of a beginner cookie, so it should look awesome. Nothing too tricky about it. Everything that adds sprinkles always looks better. When you add sprinkles, makes it all look great. So you can let this one dry. Of course, it's gonna need that time to dry. Try not to bump it. Just hold it, you know, on the bottom. Try to touch the icing. I'm gonna put it in my bakery box, which all the stuff came in. That's your bakery box. And then we're gonna grab Santa. So he's out of the waiting room, back in the office. I'm goofy, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm so goofy. If you don't know that already, then now you know. So you're going to grab your ivory or your brown color. And this is kind of, it's about it's not quite a medium consistency, but it is a little bit thicker than your thin icings. And the reason for that is so that you can do the nose as well. But the first thing you want to do is just make sure to get all of this inside where that part is. And so cut a small hole. So I would say about the hole of like an outline here. And then you might want to do it on your napkin just to make sure we get not the super watery, runny parts. But let's just flood it so that we can let him dry. I'm going to use my toothpick. I'm going to make sure the tip is clean so I can push into the white. And since we let it dry, we get that nice separation. So we don't have to, they don't have to mesh together. They're going to kind of stand apart, which is nice. Okay, and then guess where he's going? Back to the waiting room. No, just kidding. He's gonna go over to buy the mug. So yeah, kind of in the waiting room. So we've got our candy cane next, and then we'll take a break. So he gets go dry. I just got icing all on my elbow. Okay, so the next one before we take a break is going to be our candy cane. Candy cane is like an intermediate cookie. I would not say it's beginner, but it's also not like super difficult. I would use your marker for this to make the lines. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. So what I did here was I have been taking my edible marker and drawing those lines. And again, make sure you're drawing at an angle to get that the ink out, or if you don't want to, you don't have to. Sometimes if you're having trouble with writing on it, you can dip it in water and wipe it off on a napkin. Sometimes I've found that helps. But we are drawing about 6 lines. If it's not 6, doesn't matter. You can do 5 or 7. But we're gonna do kind of diagonal lines here. I'll try to go slow with this if you are kind of doing the lines with me here. So 1, 2, 3. These next ones are going to also be diagonal pretty much, not straight across. 4. 5, and 1 more. Something like that. Might not be perfect. You can also, when you do it with your thick red, you can change the lines if you need to. But something kind of different. So there's a couple of ways we can do this, but I'm going to show you the way that I would do it. And that's going to be outlining in red and white. So the black that you see is not till later. That's going to be like a detail that I put on over it, which is also not necessary, but it kind of makes it pop out a little bit more. So what we need first though is going to be our thick red. So make sure you grab the one that has a line on it. And then I did each one, so alternating white and red, of course. I did tracing the line, I'm going to create this segment, and this segment is going to be all red. So we're going to trace the lines all with the red. Then we'll go back over, and the white parts will get the outer edges outlined, but first we're just dealing with the red. And so the next one. And then the next. So we've got our red here. And then when we do the white, it's not going to, we're not going to actually hug up under or next to the red. We're just going to do the thick white on the outside. So if and when you're ready, you'll connect, so you'll touch, make sure it's touching the red. But we're just gonna fill in these gaps here, and that part will be white. Okay, I'll let y'all finish that. All right, so when you do the flooding, a couple ways you can do it. So you can flood all of the reds first and then go and flood the whites, or you can do red and then white and then red and then white. I think I taught red, white, but they will, we want them to mesh together. You see how there's like no separation? That's what we want. So we can do it either way, but we just want to make sure we're kind of doing it quickly so that it'll mesh together. We may also use the little tap and shake method, and that'll kind of help them run together because we do want that sort of look. Okay. So I'm gonna do the red. I'm gonna try doing all the red first because I did last time. I did the red and white. Toothpick, I'm going to clean it, make sure it doesn't have any other color on it. So you can follow me. I'm going to do all of the red first. And my hope is that it won't dry too quick. I still want the white to mesh together. If you do find that you're a bit slower, then you might want to alternate flooding the white and the red. And that's perfectly fine too, obviously. That's how I taught it last time I did the class. Okay, so switching over to white. Thin white, make sure that you're grabbing the ones that are thin. This is the only thin white that we need this for. And we do want them to overlap. So Don't be too afraid to put in a lot of icing. We do want them to overlap. You can push the icing with your toothpick. But yeah, it's totally fine if they kind of overlap. We want that. I just realized I have not had a candy cane yet this year. Usually I have at least one. They're not my favorite candy, but... Oh, but I did make some peppermint chocolate cookies. That was amazing. I really liked that. I love peppermint and chocolate together. And they had crushed candy cane, so does that count? It's like on top, maybe? I have not had like an actual candy cane. Okay, so they actually meshed together perfectly, so that was awesome. But if I wanted to, I could give it a little shake and tap. Maybe. Not too hard. You don't want the icing to like fall off, you know. Okay, so this one is going to chill out. I'm gonna show you, we're about to take a break here. So if you need to catch up at all, this is where we want to be. All right, they might look a little different than mine, which is okay. So I'm not going to say they should look like this, but they should be at this, at these steps here. We've got our tree that's done. I guess I'll pull that over. Yep. So if you need to catch up, just make sure you're at least at these steps. And I don't even know if I can fit them all. Try to fit them all here. Doesn't really matter. Okay. So we're here, right? Awesome. Okay, and we're gonna do some fun things. So we're really just trying to let these dry a little bit longer before we add the details. But we'll do our little break for about 5 to 10 minutes. Maybe closer to 10. And then we'll do all the detailings on them. Again, the hardest one is probably going to be Santa and the mug. Those ones. This one's just going to get a black outline. This is going to get a tie and a little heart. Oh, and that one's done. So yeah, just 4 of them will get the details, but only 2 of them will really be that difficult. All right, so if you have not done the little chat box yet, of course, this doesn't apply if you are watching the pre-recording on YouTube, but if you are live right now and you have not seen that chat box, it's going to be exit out of full screen and you're going to see it on the right. Make sure that in the email you clicked the link directly. If you clicked the little video, which was on the bottom, you won't see the chat box. So, but you should be able to see it on the right of the video if you follow those directions. And I'm gonna have an opportunity for y'all to be able to participate in this next little step and to be able to win some prizes. All right, so if you've not said hi yet, and this isn't gonna like disqualify you from a prize or anything if you don't do this, but just make sure to say hi and let me know that you're here. I know that there are quite a few of you on right now. And we're gonna do a little, some door prizes. Okay. So I was trying to print these out earlier, but it didn't work out. So I'm gonna see how it works if I show you here from my phone. But we're just gonna have some fun and play a little what's called Christmas Emoji Pictionary. Christmas Emoji Pictionary. So it's just like what it sounds. It's gonna be a picture, which actually is an emoji, and you can guess what the Christmas song is based on the emoji. And I'm gonna see how this looks here on the phone. I might actually see if I can do a screenshot. Of course, when I need my printer to work is the one time that it did not work. But first one here, let's see if y'all can see this. Try to. Okay, so in the chat box, you're going to write your answer. What song do you think this is? Your guitar, that symbol, tree. What song is this? In the chat box for prize, to be able to be drawn in a raffle for prizes. So if you comment, you will be entered into a raffle. All right. Next one. Can y'all see that? I thought these were kind of easy. There's like maybe one that's a little difficult, but you should be able to get them. So what is this song? These are all Christmas songs. Emojis. Nice. And if you comment, you get a little prize. Or you get a you'll be raffled in to win a prize. Okay. This one is interesting. So I'll tell you the answer. So the first one was Rocking Around the Christmas Tree. That one was, yep, Joy to the World. What about this one? This one right here with the eye. That should be easy, right? Number 4. What y'all think this song is? All right, this one, let's do some harder ones. What do you think this one is? Number 8. Actually, number 7 as well. If you want to guess number 7 for giggles. 7 and 8. What do you think those songs are? I don't even actually know. I gotta look at the answer key right now. Let's see. 7 and 8. The answer, because I do have the answer key. It was Blue Christmas. Yep, somebody guessed that. And then it was Here Comes Santa Claus, were the little footprints. All right, let's do one more. This one might be a little tricky. Number 15. I don't know if y'all can see what flag that is. If you know it, you'll know it. 14 is Frosty the Snowman. Guessing 15. Can also guess 16 if you want. These will be the last ones that we do. But does anybody know what 15 is? Oh, yay! Yeah. Feliz Navidad. And then this one. Don't know what that one is. That one is, do you hear what I hear? Okay. I know I had somebody text me, so they'll be entered into the drawing as well. All right. So now, hope that you guys are having fun. I'm going to do a couple of door prizes. This is just going to be a random number generator based on who ordered a kit. So if you ordered a kit, your name is entered in once. If you ordered 2, your name is twice. 3, your name is in there 3 times, which I think only applied to one person. But there are a couple of y'all who did order 2 kits. And I'm just doing it on my computer here. So everybody's names are on here. And I'm not actually going to tell you what you're going to win, but you will be sent a mystery gift. And it will have something to do with cookie decorating. So that'll be fun, right? Okay, so random number generator. We have 2. I'm going to pick 2 people. All right, ready? The first person is number 15, which is Nisi Murphy, and I know she's on here because she's been chatting. Nisi, you won a little mystery door prize that I will send to you tomorrow, but you might not get it till after Christmas. We'll see. All right, one more for y'all. Number 10 is Rebecca Johnson. I think she just texted me. Rebecca Johnson, congrats as well. So for the 2 of y'all, you'll be getting a little mystery present from me. Okay. Let's continue on. Hope y'all are having a lot of fun. We do have just about 30 minutes left, but I think that we might finish before then. We'll see. And we've got our tree, which is done. Okay. So we do want to start on the ones that are the driest. So I'm gonna say candy cane maybe last. Santa maybe last. Ooh. What do we do? You want to do a hard one or an easy one? Hard or easy first? I don't know. I'll leave it up to you. Take a vote. You want to do a hard one or easy one first? Hard. I got 1 vote for hard. So, yeah, I guess if you're the only one voting, we'll say hard. Okay, so the hard one would definitely be you got 3 votes for hard. Yay. Sorry, I know it's a little delayed. It's about 10 seconds from my live speaking to actually streaming. But we'll do this. Yeah, why not, right? Okay, so I want to do the candy cane first. The candy cane, it's not gonna quite look like this because this is like a month-old cookie, so it all kind of like ran together. But it's gonna be, we can do the outline in black, but we will re-outline it later, but we'll do the outline in black. And then what we do is we are gonna use the thick red and the thick white. So we kind of do the same thing that you did on the candy cane. Same kind of concept where we're going to do the red and then the white and then the red and then the white, and then it'll kind of mesh together. Now remember that the thick one is still thin enough that it can act like a flood, so it won't be like clumpy. It will actually mesh together like we want it to. But the first thing we need is our black. So now before you go cutting a hole in this one, we need this to be very tiny. So it's gonna be smaller than the outline. And I don't even know if you can see this, but we wanna do like a very, very tiny amount. I don't even know if you can see that. But if I cut this little piece, I'm gonna cut about half of what I would do for my outline. And you can see that little triangle, teeny, teeny, tiny, because we want to be able to write the words Mary on it as well. So it's going to be tiny. And if you cut too much off, you got to redo, right? All right, make sure you run your fingers down the side. And then we're just going to do the top of the candy cane and then down, and then this one as well. So we want those two little rectangles. We have our thick red and white. And I did, let's see, I did red first. So this, what I would do is I would do like a line. And so I'm gonna kind of outline and flood with it. It's a small cut, so you just have to squeeze to get it all out. But this is the hardest part here. I'm gonna just do 2 red segments here. So I kind of outlined the little rectangles, and then I just flood with the same one. And then on the one kind of in the back, I did the opposite color. So where the white is gonna be on the left, I did red on the right. And while it's still wet, you're gonna grab your thick white, and we're just gonna go in between. We are gonna touch right up next to it. And see if you can avoid touching the red with the tip of the bag. Try not to touch the red with the tip. And then if it's not perfect, you can use your toothpick to try and kind of get it sort of like in the little crevices. But we will go back over it with that black outline as well. Sorry. And we'll clean it up. So if you end up covering your black, don't worry about that too much, because we are going to go back over it with the black. But it does dry kind of quickly, so once it's in there, it's going to start drying. But there you have your candy canes. And we'll clean it up after we do the writing. We'll clean it up a little bit with the the black. But yeah, that's a little tricky, huh? A little tricky. Okay. So thick white that has a line on it. What I did for the whipped cream was I kind of looped it. It's definitely not the easiest thing, so if you want, you can also squiggle. You can leave it like this, but for the loops, little hand-eye coordination here. Just loop it. It's a little tricky. You can do squiggles if you prefer, but something kind of like that. And then want to do the writing. So I would first practice on your parchment paper here, or like a napkin if you can. It might get a little bit messy, so if you want to do it on a napkin, if you still want to use that parchment paper, I am probably, let's see, Joy or Mary. Joy is definitely easier because it only got 3 letters. Mary is hard because you have to fit them all in, but it's definitely possible. What I did was I did very long, slender letters, and that is going to help fit them in, right? You can also do Noel. Let's see, what else did I do? I did Joy, Noel. What else did I do? I think that's it. That's the only words I can really think of that are small enough to fit. Snow. Santa would be kind of long. But if you go for like tall, slender letters, it's a little bit easier. But I would practice on your parchment paper first. And so if we're doing tall and slender, remember, this is gonna be tricky. And if your line doesn't look like the width of like a Sharpie, like a thin point Sharpie, you're gonna want to transfer it to a new bag and give it a different cut, because the smaller it is, the easier it's gonna be to write. And then one of the big differences with the writing, you kind of do stay a little bit closer to the cookie, so you don't come up as much with your wrist. You do kind of stay a little bit close. You don't come as far up, and then that just kind of helps you with sort of that direction of where the lines are going. But practice whatever you want to say. Practice and then just see if that cup is gonna, if it's all gonna fit in the cup, then that's good. That's like mega slanted. Oh well. So I think that'll fit. The Joy will definitely fit. Mary, maybe. Kind of like in the Joy, to be honest, a little bit easier. But you know, oh, cheer, yeah, that's good, cheer. But I advertised the Mary, so I really should probably do the Mary. Okay, so after you practice, just go for it, you know, just give it a go. It's not gonna be easy, but you gotta just gotta do it, right? So let's start on the mug. Once it's on, you can't really fix it. So that's the only downside to doing the detailing. Once it's on, it's on. The top layer of icing is dry enough to do this. Just make sure you're not poking that icing bag through, because underneath it is still drying, so just know just the top layer is dry. Freehanding like this is no joke. So if you get any kind of words on there and it's legible, then kudos to you. I'm telling you, because it's no joke. Whew. Kind of happy with that. Kind of. It's hard because I've got this camera like right in front of me, so I'm kind of working around it. But happy with that. This guy is almost done. We're just going to add that black. We're going to re-outline the candy canes to really make them stand out. But let me know if you want. Let me know in the chats how that worked out for you. Always curious. Okay. So once we do the writing, and then we're gonna, if you want to watch me, if you're not done yet, we're just going to re-outline here. Let these stand out a little bit more and separate them again. But if your red and white is really looking a hot mess, you can also do lines in between if you want to clean it up a little bit more. And I'm just going to do it just for the sake of showing you what it looks like. But that's also an option if you're feeling a little insecure about how it looks. It does kind of clean it up. It makes it look better, right? All right. We are 2 down. Okay. Actually, before we do Santa, since we've got the black, let's just go ahead and outline the candy cane. This part's pretty simple. I just went around the edge. And keep it the same cut. I know it's gonna be a little small, but it'll look better when it's thinner like this. And then we also still need to do Santa's eyes. So we are 3 down. 2 to go. And we're making really good timing. And because we're making good timing, I'll take a little pause here just if you need to catch up. All right, so we ready to go? Finish him? So Santa's gonna get some little cute eyes. The eyes are like semicircles, but then I also kind of like give them little like lines on the end. So a little semicircle and then little wisp out. But we want to do the nose first. So his nose, he's got a big old nose. He got a big nose. But it's gonna be with the color. Where did my bag go? I lost Santa's skin color. Which I don't know how that's possible because I don't really have anything else right here. Oh well. Let me see if I can try to find it. But his nose is going to be a little drop of icing. And you're going to stay in, if I can't find it, I'll just use the white, which is silly. Oh, it fell on the ground. Of course it did. Okay. Okay, so the nose is gonna be halfway on his face, halfway on his beard. But what I do is I put it right in the middle and then I spiral and squeeze until I get the right width that I want. And it is a little bit runny, so it's gonna come out pretty easy. And then you can kind of use your toothpick if you want to make it more of a perfect circle. You can give him a big nose or a little nose. But that's gonna be it for his nose. He's just got his beard and his eyes left. So the nose was pretty easy. I'm glad that I found the color. His eyes, semicircles. All right, so it's a little tricky, this part. Stay kind of close to his face, semicircle, and then a little part out to the side, and then see if you can get it symmetrical, kind of as best that you can. And definitely mine are not symmetrical. But it's all good. It's kind of like he's a jolly Santa. Hopefully he's not sleeping. He's smiling so big his eyes are squinting. That's what we're going with, right? Yeah. Okay, for his beard, it's the last thing. So, his beard, couple of things. So, if you want to look at these two, I did something different on both of these. So we're kind of doing just little like spirals to kind of be like the hair of his beard, right? But I never do the same Santa the same way. Like I never do each Santa the same way. So kind of just get creative and sort of just do little swirls like as you see that they would look good. And then I did re-outline the hat and the little puff if you want to let those stick out. But that's also not necessary, but if you would like to re-outline that, you can. But let's just kind of do the little spirals. And if your thick white has too big of a hole, this is going to be, you do kind of want this to be kind of small. So if your thick white is too big, then just transfer it to a new bag, because you do want those to be a little bit, a little tinier hole. If you just have the outline hole, then that's perfect. But wherever we are starting, I usually start on the left, and I'm just gonna get creative and just kind of spiral wherever I want. And I kind of make them close together. It's a little tricky. And I kind of try to follow sort of like how the shape of this beard is, but again, I never do it the same way each time, so. This might actually be my least favorite one that I've done. Whoops. Oh well. And I guess I'll re-outline the little pom-pom and the white. But there you have it. And they do look nicer when they dry, because then that icing's not so glossy. I do like it when it dries. This one was from my last class. So when it dries, it kind of gets this nice finish here and looks more matte rather than glossy, and I think that looks nice. Okay, so that is Santa. And we're gonna finish out the last one. You can keep working on him if you're not done yet. But I do just want to show you this one is really simple, because we're almost at the finish time. So the little ribbon, it's going to be a straight line across, 2 little teardrops, squiggles, and then a little dot in the middle. So we're going to start with the little line across. Whoop. Almost dropped the camera on them. Can't say that'd be the first time that it's happened. All right, then we got 2 teardrops. Squiggles are fun. You go right and left as you move down. And then it kind of gives you this nice little squiggle line, or you can go as you move up. Oh, maybe I could put a sprinkle where the dot would be. Maybe a white sprinkle. Let's see. That looks cute. If you've got a white sprinkle, you can put a dot there. Kind of looks nice. Or you can just put a dot of white icing. And then the last thing I did for this is I grabbed my thick green and I did a heart. So a couple of ways you can do a heart. You can actually outline a heart and then flood with your thick green. But I like to do a teardrop and then drag down. Teardrop, drag down to meet in the middle. So again, you're squeezing till you get the right width, and then you drag down. You squeeze and then you drag down. So that's fun for a heart. One of my favorite things is to make hearts like these. But yeah, that's it. So once you finish that, here are all of our cookies. I'll see if I can line them up. We can see what we've accomplished. They don't really all line up, but that's okay. Not really enough space. So I hope that you had fun, and if you are a beginner and have never done this before, hopefully you enjoyed learning some concepts. And if you have done this before, hopefully you felt like your cookies turned out really good. Better than last time, maybe. But just a few closing statements. So if you keep these cookies in your bakery box to dry, let them dry overnight, right? But if you keep them there, they can stay there for about 3 days at room temperature. If you, when's Christmas? Friday. So if you really want to keep them till like Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, I would advise putting them in like a Ziploc bag and just make sure it's as airtight as possible, and then they'll stay fresh at room temperature through like the next week. And then if they're in a Ziploc, they stay fresh for about 2 to 3 weeks. So you can actually keep them like that. But my guess is they will all be gone by Christmas Day. At least they probably won't last till Saturday. But if you do want to keep them longer, pop them in the fridge. They'll stay fresh for 6 weeks or longer. If you want to keep them in the freezer, they'll stay longer. But that is it. I hope that you guys had a great time. Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for joining me. And I will have some more classes posted, like a Valentine's class, a spring class. I've got a hot cocoa bomb class in February. So those are on sale now, but the other ones won't be posted till later because I am taking a 2-week break and I'm so excited about it. So once I come back in January, I'll hit the ground running. But I hope you had a great time. Thank you so much. If you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, I would love to see your creations. So if you want to post in your stories and tag me, I would love to see those, or just send me a message or an email. Show me your creations. I would love that. But hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas, and thank you so much. Bye.